A few weeks ago, I was riding this bike down this street. I came to this rack and I parked my bike using this lock. I locked it up and I went into that building. And at the end of the day, when I came out, something weird had happened. A stranger had parked their bike next to mine and had secured their bike with several cable locks. But one of those cable locks was also looped around my bike. Now, at first I thought this was an innocent mistake. I mean, that's an easy thing to do if you're not really paying attention. But then I remembered the story of a friend of mine who was in the exact same situation and also thought it was an innocent mistake, but it wasn't. Hey everyone, I'm Tom, and this is Shifter, a channel about urban cycling, bike commuting, and the ways we get around our cities. And today's video is about some of the dirty tricks that thieves can play to steal our bikes, and how this incident was a wake-up call for me to double down on my security without losing myself to paranoia and being afraid to take my bike anywhere I want to take it. What was going through my mind was the story of my friend who waited around for hours for the rightful owner of that lock to return, and then he gave up and he went home. When he came back the next morning, his bike was gone. The thief had waited till the middle of the night when there was nobody around, come back, cut both locks, and stolen his bike. Luckily for me, I was able to find a police officer nearby who I told my story to. He happened to have a pair of bolt cutters in his cruiser, and he was able to free my bike. The whole thing kind of rattled me. I mean, I make a lot of videos about bike theft, and here I was, almost a victim of it myself. Which got me even more was when I got home, I went to double check the status of my bikes in the bike registry databases. I hadn't even registered this bike yet. I had gotten complacent, and it almost cost me.
My name's Phil Marmette. I am the business development manager for Abus Mobile Security.
Now, Phil has worked for Abus for a long time, so he's kind of become an expert in personal bike security. And since Abus signed on as a sponsor of this channel a few months ago, I feel quite lucky that he's kind of become my go-to guy for questions about bike security. And so I asked him about this near miss that I encountered, whether maybe I overreacted and this was just an honest mistake, or if this really was a bike theft strategy. And he confirmed that, yeah, he's heard of this before also as a theft strategy, but he also mentioned a bunch of other dirty tricks that he's heard about over the years.
And there's some things that maybe everybody doesn't know that we kind of take for granted. Like, for instance, using a stop sign. If it's stuck into the earth, it may or may not be anchored with a concrete plug. So that stop sign, if you wiggle it, you could theoretically pull it right out of the ground. There's also, in cities, you'll look at the street signs and they'll have a plate with two bolts. If those bolts are exposed, it could be unbolted. Sometimes thieves will actually unbolt them, and then put them back and wait for a bike. Then they can just lift the pole, take the bike, take it to a secure location, cut the lock later.
There's also bike lock tampering, which is like using super glue in the locking mechanism or some other way of destroying the mechanism so that your lock is broken and stuck there, and then the thief will come back overnight and cut the lock and take your bike as well. Now, before you start panicking about these tactics, that's not the goal here. Neither Phil or I was set out to scare you. That's not the point here. The reason I called Phil is because I wanted some advice on how to be safe and secure without being overwhelmed by the burden of security or fear that my bike was going to get stolen.
Remember, first of all, security is resistance to time. In general, that's what we're talking about. It's all resistance to time. When you, statistically, if you look at home invasion, car theft, etc., it's about 3 minutes. 3 to 5 minutes is what a thief needs to be able to accomplish their task and get away without getting caught effectively. That's when we're talking about someone actually working and attacking your lock. So when you need more security, you're getting more than 10 minutes, say. If you're getting 5 minutes out of a 540, when you use 2 of them, you're not getting 10, you're getting more like 20.
Now this sounds weird, but the goal here isn't to make your bike impossible to steal, which is probably not feasible anyway. You know, honestly, the goal is just to make your bike more difficult or more burdensome to steal than the bikes around you.
I hate to say it, but some of the best advice is remember the story about the bear. You don't actually have to outrun the bear. And in this case, look at where you're locking. Lock next to a bike that's not as well locked. The lock is perhaps suspect. The bike isn't locked at all. Thieves will always go for the easiest target first. And if you are doing your diligence, unfortunately, one of the advices we can give is lock next to somebody who didn't do quite as good of a job, because you will then not be a target.
So on Phil's suggestion, I've given up the idea of finding the ultimate lock. The perfect lock just doesn't exist. Instead, a better way to think about it might be different locking scenarios for different situations. So here's the framework that I've come up with. And on Phil's suggestion, I'm thinking about both time and location. So for those quick stops, so between 5 and 15 minutes, no matter where I'm locking it, I'm always going to have a lock on my bike. And for me, these folding locks are a great, convenient option. This is an Abus Bordeaux 6500K. It's got pretty good security actually, and it folds up into the small location. So I'm going to keep that on my bike and my key with me at all times. Use it whenever the scenario arises. For the longer trips, say 15 minutes to an hour, I'm still going to use this lock, but I'm going to think a lot harder about where I'm parking my bike. I want to make sure that there's a good solid rack like this one here. I'm going to make sure it's in a well-lit location with lots of people around, not squirreled around in some shadowy place. I think I'll feel pretty good if the location is good and I'm using a folding lock like this. Now, if I'm leaving my bike all day, like a commuting situation, this is where I'm going to supplement my security. Not only am I going to look for a good location to lock my bike, I'm going to use my folding lock, and I'm going to throw into my bag also a stronger U-lock like this one. It's the Abus Ultimate 420K. It'll be a great secondary piece of security. But if you've got a really expensive bike or an e-bike, you might even want to upgrade that. This is the Abus Granite Super Extreme, and this will offer great security if you've got a really expensive bike. This plus a secondary lock, I think you're going to be pretty safe no matter where you're leaving your bike. Well, maybe not everywhere, but most places that you leave your bike. Okay, let's search within 50 miles of me. Look at all these bikes. Mountain bikes everywhere. Oh, look at this. I'm on the 9th page of search results, and that's just in the last month. These are bikes stolen within 50 miles of me in the last month. This is crazy. This is Bike Index. This is a bike theft prevention registry. This is a place where you can upload information about your bike, and if it gets stolen, the police can tap into it, and if the bike is recovered, it can come back to you. This is Bike Index. This is the one that's used here in Calgary where I live. Project 5 to 9, the one over here, this is used by other cities. This one's also great. I would say even a little better. There's some extra features that I like on Project 5 to 9, but it doesn't really matter. Both of these databases are linked. What really matters is finding out the one that your city uses, or maybe there's one that's different in your city, and make sure you upload your bike. The key reason that these work is because if your bike is stolen and it's registered here and the police or somebody recovers it, its chances of finding its way back to you are slightly higher than 0, which is what it normally is. The reason I'm on here is because I have been a big advocate of these over the years, and I was horrified after my near miss to realize that I hadn't even registered that bike on Bike Index yet. Registering your bike on either of these services is super fast and easy. Go into the app, create a new one, and just go through the process. Give your bike a name, put in the relevant details. Make sure to add that serial number. That's an important part. Serial numbers are usually found on the bottom bracket. You may have to flip your bike over to do it. And then add a bunch of photographs of your bike, of the distinctive elements of your bike, and then also some photos of yourself with the bike so that you can prove that it belongs to you. Put as much information as you can. Do this for all of your bikes, and then they're registered. Oh great, you're still here listening to me talk about bike theft? Well, I just want to leave you with one final thought, and this is something that also came from Phil. If you're in love with your bike and you're really worried about losing it to bike theft, I'd actually say there's a bigger risk than losing your bike, and that's losing your bike life. Biking is so good for us. We want more people to do it. We need more people on bikes, and theft is an underappreciated barrier, in my opinion, to getting more people on bikes. Not only in that the data says many people who have their bike stolen just never come back to cycling and they just never try again, but also I think the fear of losing a bike really discourages not just a lot of people, but a lot of bike trips. I think a lot of people think twice about using your bike for what's a totally reasonable purpose because they're worried about it getting stolen. And the answer to this, at least on an individual level, is to find a balance between security and practicality. In other words, it's better to have a moderate lock that you're going to use every time than an amazing lock that is too burdensome to carry with you and you just don't bother to use it. And part of this balance, I think, too, is doing other things if you feel like you need to do it, such as putting an AirTag or a tracking device on your bike. This is not a silver bullet. There's lots of problems with this, but it certainly doesn't hurt. It can help in lots of situations. Bike insurance might be another option for you. Try to find out your regime of security that makes you feel good about using your bike and makes you feel secure, but also encourages you from riding it, that doesn't stop you from choosing the bike. And maybe remember one other thing that Phil said, and that's that most bike theft is opportunistic, not professional. So don't let the fear of theft discourage you from riding. Be smart, be strategic, lock up, and ride your bike as much as you can. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.